year has been a period of hard work and significant recovery. Courts at every level in Georgia, throughout this state, are emerging from the fog of the COVID-19 pandemic, only to be confronted with new challenges presented by truly crushing caseloads.
The Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court talks about the obstacles the state judicial system faces, as well as his optimism about what the future holds. Good evening. Welcome to Lawmakers on day 30 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. More on the state of the judiciary is coming up. Third grade is the benchmark year for education. Research shows performance in third grade can determine how well a child does in life, especially when it comes to reading literacy. It also helps prepare them for the workforce. On the show, we're going to break down literacy bills with lawmakers joining us in the studio from both chambers and both sides of the aisle. But let's get to the news of the day under the Gold Dome from Capitol correspondent Rochelle Ritchie.
Well, hi, Donna. Both chambers started out the day by acknowledging International Women's Day and presenting a bouquet of yellow roses to the first ladies of the House and the Senate. But the big news for the House and the Senate was the State of the Judiciary address by Chief Justice Michael Boggs.
Today, during a joint session of the House and Senate, Chief Justice Michael P. Boggs gave an informative and hopeful State of the Judiciary address in the House chamber, discussing everything from the challenges facing Georgia's justice system to mental health.
This past year has been a period of hard work and significant recovery. Courts at every level in Georgia, crimes, business disputes, custody battles, resolving the unsettled estates of departed loved ones, those things did not stop simply because of a virus. They demand resolution then and now.
Chief Justice Boggs applauding the efforts of Governor Kemp to address the needs of the court through much needed funding.
Fortunately, Governor Kemp has been responsive to the plea of our courts across Georgia for help. And during his first term, you're aware that he committed $96 million in federal American Rescue Plan Act funds to state courts and prosecutors, another $14 million to public defenders to address and focus on the remediation of serious violent felony cases.
That $96 million being used to provide temporary space to hold jury selection, hire temporary personnel, and upgrade equipment. But despite the funding helping to decrease the stack of felony cases, the Chief Justice was clear that job vacancies are having a major impact on the pursuit of justice for prosecutors and defendants.
As you know, for a court system to operate effectively and justly, we need every component at full capacity. That means we need judges and prosecutors, we need public defenders and court reporters, we need clerks and interpreters and courtroom security. To make matters worse, the problem is especially acute in areas outside of metro area and in rural parts of this state. Meanwhile, and not surprisingly, the number of pending criminal cases grows larger, and so does the wait for defendants charged but not convicted of crimes who are sitting in local jails awaiting throughout this state indictment or trial. And of course, as you know, in our system, punishment is supposed to follow conviction, not precede it.
The Chief Justice also addressed an important issue for both chambers, taking the time to recognize the continued efforts.
I also want to take a moment to acknowledge on this particular issue the critical leadership of late Speaker David Ralston, and thank Speaker John Burns for continuing Speaker Ralston's legacy in this regard. Since 1980 in Georgia, the number of people going to jail has tripled and the length of sentence has increased by 166%. I believe that much of this is attributable to deficiencies in our mental health service delivery systems.
With the creation of the Behavioral Health Commission, Chief Justice Boggs believes the state is on the right path to address mental health challenges.
Thankfully, Governor Kemp and all of you have recognized the importance of addressing this very significant problem in creating and supporting the work of the Governor's Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission, a commission on which I serve. Your efforts have ensured that Georgia continues to lead the country in thoughtfully and responsibly addressing this issue. Sincerely, I truly thank all of you for your overwhelming support last year and this year of the recommendations of the Commission, and I trust that you recognize that your efforts reflect well on the priorities of our state.
And the Chief Justice also discussed ways to address recidivism of non-violent veterans through treatment programs. That is my Capitol Report. Donna, back to you.
Thanks, Rochelle. Before we go any further, we want to take the time to offer our condolences to the family of Representative Tish Nagasi. The Georgia Democratic Party announced that she has passed away. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family. Now, our topic for this show is literacy in Georgia, and our first guests are Republican Representative Bethany Ballard of Warner Robins, one of the many new lawmakers this year, and Republican Representative Will Wade of Dawsonville, who is in his second term in the House, and both are on the House Education Committee. Thank you both for coming to Lawmakers. I appreciate that. So I want to start with a little background on both of you that kind of deals with this issue. So Representative Ballard, you were in the classroom, you're a teacher, so this really is at the heart of it for you. You understand what goes on. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I began my career in education I taught high school. I taught high school English, 9th through 12th graders, and so I know how important it is for our children to read. I took some time off after I had my own children, but I never left the classroom, really. I volunteered all the way through their school, and so I really have been in the public school system for all the years that I have been an adult, actually.
And so now you're in the legislature, so I'm glad to have you here. Let's talk about your background in education with the Dawson County School Board.
Yes,
almost
ma'am.
15 years?
Yeah.
Or 16 years?
Almost 16 years. A native of Dawsonville, Georgia, a student, I guess I joke with kids, a class in the 20th century near the end of it, and got to go back and serve locally as a school board member, served as chairman and helped us become one of the first charter systems. And we were very focused on literacy efforts in our school system too, and I look forward to talking about this, what I believe is one of the most important bills that we've done this year, and I look forward to seeing Bethany continue getting that thing across the finish line.
Yeah, so let's talk about the passion. We've talked a little bit about your passion. You're lead sponsor of House Bill 538. Tell us about it.
This bill highlights the importance of childhood literacy. If a child is not reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, they are less likely to graduate on time. They are less likely to be gainfully employed when they do graduate. And they are more likely to go to jail if they are not reading. So everything hinges on reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade. And we want to return our schools to the foundational, back to basics reading principles that have served us so well throughout history. These are principles that helped us put man on the moon. We used these principles for generations, but we have gotten away from them. We have lost our focus, and we have chased some shiny objects in our curricula that haven't really worked out all that well, and our reading scores across the state are showing that.
So you want to create the Georgia Early Literacy Act.
Yes.
Tell us what exactly that would entail.
That will, our state school board will choose some curricula for our local school boards to choose from, so that our local school boards won't be flying blind anymore, because our local school boards, they are made up of wonderful people, but not like Representative Wade, but not all of them have backgrounds in education. So this will help them focus on the appropriate curricula that they need to choose for their school districts.
Okay. I want to mention you mentioned some statistics, but I want to mention some more from the American Educational Research Association. A student who cannot read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate. And on top of that, a child in poverty is 13 times less likely to graduate. And one more graphic I want to show you is statistics from the Georgia Office of Student Achievement, which this chart breaks down the results of the 3rd grade English Language Arts milestone scores from last year. And you'll see the racial breakdown at the top. But you also see the difference in those who are economically disadvantaged and those who are not. And so you see that those numbers are really, really striking, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah. So let's talk about why you wanted to sign on to this bill.
You know, I appreciate Bethany leading the charge on this, and I support the effort because the science of reading is actually extremely impactful when it comes to making a change for states. You know, states like Mississippi that used to be 50th in the nation, they've now honestly skyrocketed 21st. And when you've got more than 50% of your students in a state that are not reading at grade level, I look at this as a true crisis. Now, I want to be very clear though. We've got dedicated teachers in every nook and cranny of this state, every school system. But we want to make sure that they're using the right tools so that they feel confident in teaching how kids can learn to read. Because if you can't learn to read, then you won't be in that crucial step to read to continue to learn. And I believe this is economic development. The investment that we need to make in this state to allow local school systems to get teacher development and professional development up to this curriculum that she's talking about. We're laying out a very good framework. It's still going to allow local communities to have their own input. They're going to be working with other state agencies like GOSA that you mentioned, Department of Education. It's going to be impactful, and I'm excited that we're going to give, I think, what's going to be one of the best investments that we're going to see. The class of 2030s and 2040s are really going to turn the trend that Justice Boggs mentioned. We've got to do something about literacy, and I'm very proud of our House taking the lead and working with the Senate on this as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk to some senators later on. I do want to focus real quick on the science of reading, because people don't think of it as a science. Tell us about that.
Well, as we've made advances in science in lots of other areas, we have advanced in understanding how we as human beings learn to read. Human beings learn to talk very naturally. Our children just hear us and learn to talk. You don't learn to read that way. So neuroscientists have actually done scans and brain mapping and showed the actual skills that we need to teach our children to learn to read, what works. It's evidence-based. So, you know, back to phonics, which is the way a lot of us learn to read, learning to sound out those words, learning, you know, the vowel sounds when two vowels are together. So phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, and fluency, just learning to read correctly and read well out loud or just in your head, and to that reading comprehension, it's not good enough that our children can read the words. They must understand what they are reading. And we also get into a little bit of spelling because, you know, my children, all I remember from elementary school is reading and spelling words, and my children have not had that.
There's spell check, that's why.
There is spell check, but sometimes that doesn't work. So, you know, this is all science-based. It will break down for teachers exactly how to teach the science of reading.
Yeah, so I know one of the things you wanted were coaches, but no fiscal note for that.
Well, and so I'll speak to that. I know that a lot of systems in our state utilize literacy coaches. Our system back home, most of my district have those type folks, and they're investing in that locally. I think that there's a path for us to help in that area in the future. The way the bill is structured, we're going to try to build the pipeline for our current students that are in colleges of education so that when they come out of college, I believe the chancellor is very much willing to help us in that effort, Sonny Perdue, and making sure that those folks come out with a reading endorsement because it's their job to make sure that every child in this state is reading at grade level. My hope is that we're going to be able to show the evidence with efforts in the systems that use it, start actually seeing where our kids are at the beginning of kindergarten, at the beginning of first grade, at the end of first grade, at the beginning of second grade, at the end of second grade, not from an accountability measurement, but so parents can be engaged and know exactly where their kids are in that path to continue to grow and learn in reading.
And parents can be partners in this whole process.
This is a partnership. I remember when my wife and I were expecting our first child, and you know, we're both, I'm a son of two teachers, I'm married to a teacher who's now an administrator, and she and I were listening to this wonderful nurse say, listen, your job as a parent is gonna be read to your children, then you're gonna read with your children, then you're gonna listen to your children read. It is a full partnership. And I know there are some kids that come to school. I know she is a teacher. There's some kids that don't have what I had and what we try to give to our kids. So those classroom teachers, my heart is with you. I know you're doing that every day. And we just appreciate that, and we want to give you the tools to help that.
Okay, we only have about about a minute left. You're the governor's floor leader, and one of the things you're pushing is the Safe Schools Act.
Yeah, our focus this session has been on safety and literacy, and Governor Kemp is championing School Safety Act. I'm honored to carry it for him. We are focused on ensuring that school systems are going to be able to continually improve their safety opportunities to keep the folks that we don't need in our schools disrupting that. It is going to require some incident response drills, but we're also going to empower local communities to design those, and there's going to be opt-out options. And almost every state education group worked with us to develop this plan, and we appreciate their support because it's all about protecting those students and educators so that they can focus on things like literacy that are crucial to this state.
So we got a lot on our plates here, but you guys are fired up, and I think you're going to see a lot of people interested in this. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having
me.
us.
Good luck with getting your bill through the Senate.
Thank you.
Okay, all right then. Thank you so much. Coming up, we've heard from 2 members of the Georgia House. We're going to continue our conversation on literacy with 2 members of the Senate with a focus on workforce issues and more.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
Whichever way I turn, there's a trap.
Let's set this palace
On fire.
She's to be married. She is not married yet.
It's never a burden to love or give. A mother is at the heart of everything we do.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating. Doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front lines
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. One of the overall themes of this session is workforce issues in just about every industry, and the literacy issue is a critical part of preparing future workers. Joining me for our continued discussion are Democratic Senator Elena Parent of Atlanta and Republican Senator Billy Hickman of Statesboro, who is also chair of the House Higher Education Committee. So welcome back to Lawmakers. We've had you on before. You guys are passionate about what you do. Let's start with your literacy bill, HB 211. It would create a Georgia Council on Literacy. Tell us about it.
Senate Bill 211.
The Senate Bill. Oh, I did say House, didn't I? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I've got the senators now.
Yeah. The Senate Bill 211 really, we didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to be corrected overnight. So Senate Bill 211 will look at a comprehensive review of birth through post-secondary issues that affect literacy. And this actually will be a council made up of 24 people that will be appointed by the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House. And also we'll have members of the Alliance. The Board of Regents, the Board of Education also will be members of the committee.
It's pretty expansive.
Yes, ma'am.
And the reason for that is it affects so much of Georgia, doesn't it?
It is. It does. And what we found out, we're gonna get information from all these groups, and our objective is to have at least 4 meetings a year, and we're going to have a report back to the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House in November of every year. And the main thing is to find out what the real issues are considering literacy.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. You signed on to this. It's very bipartisan.
Absolutely, and I have been so gratified by the efforts undertaken by Chairman Hickman, as well as, Representative Ballard and Representative Wade. As Senator Hickman just said, we did not get into this overnight. And I do think that reading instruction in the United States, not just in Georgia, but more generally, did get sort of led astray by some false beliefs that now we know were simply wrong by increased science and neuroscience, really starting to understand how humans actually do read, how the brain processes words. There was a belief that if you just kind of read to your kids, the way Representative Ballard was talking about speaking, that they would learn. And it turns out that simply is not true for a whole lot of kids. And we had all these things where they would kind of show people a picture, or show children a picture. They're supposed to guess essentially what word went there. They were never taught specifically and explicitly to sound out the words. And guess what that means? It means if you're not doing that, you're not actually reading.
Yeah, I remember, Representative Ballard talked about it. I learned how to phonetically talk, read through words and sound them out. My kids didn't necessarily do that.
No, we learned by, and I remember so many times, long vowels and short vowels.
That's right.
And breaking the words down and pronounced like that. And I think that's what we've learned talking to so many parents now. They now are going back to the phonetics and pronouncing the words out.
Yeah. So I want to present a few more statistics on literacy. And the Georgia Office of Student Achievement, GOSHA, reports that high scores on third grade, the third grade Criterion Reference Competency Test, CRCTs, they produce higher high school graduation rates, make students more likely to take the SAT or the ACT, and they produce higher than average scores on those standardized tests if they have those high grades. And one more set of statistics, the American Educational Research Association reports early childhood education reduces the need for special education placement and decreases grade retention by more than 8% in each area. And it also increases high school graduation rates by more than 11%. And that's a key for you, isn't it? This trying to increase these high school graduation rates.
I think another important statistic of that, I really believe it also reduces teenage pregnancies. It reduces people in our prison system, but it also, if children cannot read, I think there's also a psychological disadvantage there too, because you can imagine a child in class, if the teacher calls on you to read and you're able to just read off, and then she calls on me and I can't read, then not only do I'm not able to read, but psychologically I start backing up. And so the third grade is a critical issue, but also we've also learned through this process is that we've got to start a lot earlier, as the earlier segment did, a lot earlier in life, and actually pre-K and kindergarten are critical to this also.
Yeah, I know that I anticipate a lot of people are going to want to be on this council because it is going to have so much to do with the future of Georgia.
Oh, agreed. The impact is truly enormous. We know that we have at least a third of Georgia kids, if not far more, who are not reading proficiently. And all of the outcomes that everyone has been mentioning really flow from that in so many ways. And, kids with dyslexia are one of the large groups who are impacted with this. And so they do deserve a specific mention. When your brain is wired a little bit differently neurologically, then it is next to impossible to learn to read without that explicit instruction. And it's not just children with dyslexia, there are other learning differences, and some of these explicit instruction methods help all kids, including all struggling readers. But it deserves mention that there may be 20% or more of struggling kids who are actually dyslexic. And
it's that high.
It is extremely high, and that is the statistic that really floored me when I started working on this issue a few years ago, saying, wow, look, we have these huge numbers of children that are not proficient, and we have this huge percentage that we suspect have dyslexia or another learning difference. And why aren't we putting two and two together here and jumping in with both feet to make sure that we're getting those kids the type of instruction that they really need?
Yeah, and the Focus on Literacy will deal with all of that, including English as a second language learners.
Correct. And I will also give credit to one of our other senators who came up with the concept that we need to include English as a second language, and also we talked earlier the poverty issues. Yeah. So we're going to address a lot. That's why this council is going to be. I believe the termination date is December 31 to 26, and but we will again report on a yearly basis to the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker about it. But I would also like to mention that, you know, we talk about literacy. And I think we said earlier, we call it an epidemic. We're almost in an epidemic that we cannot create an educated workforce with all the jobs that are coming to Georgia if our children can't read. And the numbers that GOSA puts out is at the third grade level, only 43.49% of our children are reading at third grade level. 57% are not reading on grade level at third grade.
That is a crisis level.
We can't survive. We won't survive.
And we're bringing in industry in this state, and to be able to fill those jobs, we have to have an educated workforce, one that's literate.
Absolutely, and it bears repeating what Senator Hickman said about sort of the lack of self-esteem that a child will internalize if they are struggling, because it is a basic skill that is expected within our society. Right?
Yeah.
And we, as policymakers, need to be taking steps to skill folks up well beyond literacy for the jobs of today. But right now we're failing at job number one, foundation, job number one. And I think it's fantastic that the bill, SB 211, the Literacy Council, proposes an ongoing assessment because, we do have 1.7 million children in Georgia's public schools. And we know that skilling up teachers, making sure they have the right instruction, looking at the teachers' colleges and how they're teaching these things, getting the screening into place, getting the programs to help kids with dyslexia and other reading struggles into place is all going to be, it's a really monumental effort. Well worth all our time. So I think the ongoing nature of the council would be very helpful with
all interconnected.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I don't want to get away from it. We've got to get our communities involved. It's a community issue, and I really think that if our communities knew how illiterate our children were, our communities will rise up and come together. And part of it is our administrators and I hate to say this, our superintendents and our state board people have not told us. They have camouflaged it bad. They've camouflaged it by graduation rates being up here and literacy rates being down here. And I hate to say that, but that's just the basic truth.
And they have to be tied together.
They've got to be together.
They do.
And we got to find a metric system that everybody in every nonprofit. I know you're involved in a literacy nonprofit.
Yes.
Every nonprofit agrees the same type of metric system, so we can truly measure, as the representative said in the first session, we can truly measure our children.
Yeah, and then one of the things, you're on higher education, you're chair of higher education in the Senate, so making sure they're ready to go to college too. There's been a lot of focus on that, but that's a workforce issue too.
Well, we talked to back today I met with some university people, and they were talking about how children coming into the university system and college system are not only not able to read, not able to write, not able to spell, as you mentioned earlier.
Wow, it's pretty scary to actually think about that, what we're dealing with.
It will take this monumental effort, but nothing could be more critical. Nothing, as far as I'm concerned, is more worthy of attention and state investment. As Representative Wade said in the earlier segment, one of our southern neighbors, Mississippi, about 9 years ago, recognized the crisis that they were in and put into place a comprehensive literacy plan that has reaped amazing results for them. But we need the will.
We're gonna do that in Georgia. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm glad we spent this whole show focusing on it. But it does that does it for Lawmakers today. We'll be back tomorrow, and that'll be day 31. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
You do a great job. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Don't leave me yet. Don't leave me yet.
You do a great job.